The wind howled across the barren New Mexico territory like the cry of a dying wolf, carrying dust and despair through the cracked boards of an abandoned trading post just as the sun bled out over the horizon. A lone rider appeared on the ridge, his black hat pulled low, coat flapping like raven wings, and behind him on the saddle lay a limp figure wrapped only in a coarse wool blanket, her bare feet dangling, streaked with blood and grime. He was Josiah Kane, a hard-bitten rancher who had seen too many graves dug before their time, and the woman he carried was Lila Redhawk, daughter of a Comanche mother and a white trapper father, left for dead by a gang of outlaws who had raided her village 2 days earlier. He had found her crawling through the sagebrush, half naked, beaten, begging for water with cracked lips, and something in her broken eyes had stirred a part of him he thought long buried, since his own wife and child were taken by fever 10 years ago. He brought her to his remote cabin deep in the arroyo, laid her on the straw mattress by the fire, and covered her bruised body with that same rough blanket, telling himself he was only doing what any decent man would. Night fell heavy, the fire crackling low, and Lila woke with a start, clutching the blanket to her chest, her dark eyes wide with terror as she saw the stranger sitting across the room sharpening his knife. "Please don't take the cloth off," she begged in a whisper raw from screaming, her voice trembling, because the outlaws had stripped her of everything, clothes, dignity, hope, and she could not bear to be exposed again, not even to the man who had saved her. Josiah's hand stilled on the blade. He was no gentle soul. The frontier had carved him rough, but he understood shame deeper than most. He nodded once, poured coffee into a tin mug, and slid it across the floor without coming closer. Days passed in wary silence. He brought her broth, left clean bandages on the table, turned his back when she needed to wash from the basin, always respecting the invisible line drawn by that blanket. Slowly, the swelling on her face went down, the cuts began to heal, and she watched him from the shadows, how he spoke low to his horse, how he mended fence alone under the burning sun, how his eyes carried the same hollow ache she now knew too well. One evening a fever took her, the wounds infected, and she burned hot, tossing in delirium, calling out names in Comanche that twisted his heart. The blanket soaked through with sweat and slipped lower, revealing angry red lines across her ribs where a whip had bitten deep. Josiah sat by the fire, jaw clenched, knowing the infection would kill her if he did nothing. He fetched the medicine pouch his wife had once used, willow bark, yarrow, turpentine, and boiled it strong. When he returned, Lila was half conscious, trying weakly to pull the blanket back up. "Please don't take the cloth off," she murmured again, tears cutting clean trails through the dirt on her cheeks. Josiah knelt at a respectful distance. "I won't look where I shouldn't, but I got to clean those wounds proper or you'll die, girl." She searched his weathered face, saw no hunger there, only grim necessity, and finally gave the smallest nod. He worked carefully, eyes fixed only on the injuries, applying the poultice with hands that had gentled colts and buried loved ones alike, never once lifting the blanket higher than needed. When it was done, he covered her again, tucked the edges tight, and sat back in his chair until dawn. The fever broke 2 nights later. Strength returned little by little, and with it conversation. She told him her name, spoke of the raid, how the outlaws led by a scar-faced man called Breed had burned the teepees and taken what they wanted before riding north toward Colorado with stolen horses. Josiah listened without interrupting, his silence giving her space to heal in words as well as flesh. He taught her to load his spare revolver, showed her how to read sign in the dust, and one afternoon, when she finally stood on steady legs, wearing one of his old shirts belted at the waist, she walked out to the porch and watched him break a mustang in the corral. Something shifted between them then, unspoken but real. Weeks turned to months. The blanket stayed folded on the shelf. She wore buckskin he had traded for in town, moved freely about the cabin, cooked beside him, laughed once, a small sound like water over stone, when he burned the biscuits. Yet the shadow of Breed and his gang hung over them both. Tracks appeared one morning near the spring, fresh shod hooves heading north. Josiah knew they would circle back eventually. Men like that always did. He cleaned his Winchester, checked the loads in his Colt, and when Lila saw the grim set of his mouth, she touched his arm. I ride with you when you go." He started to refuse, but the steel in her eyes stopped him. She had learned fast, shot straight, and carried her own weight now. They left at first light, 2 riders against 6, following the trail into the high desert. Breed's gang had holed up in an old Spanish mission ruin, drunk and careless. Josiah and Lila came in quiet, picking off the sentries before the others knew death was near. Gunfire echoed off adobe walls, powder smoke thick as fog. Lila faced Breed himself in the crumbling chapel, his scar livid in the shaft of sunlight from the broken roof. He laughed when he recognized her, reached to grab her like before, but she was no longer the broken girl crawling in the dirt. Her bullet took him square in the chest before his hand touched her. When it was over, they burned the bodies, took back the stolen horses, and rode home under a sky wide enough to hold all their ghosts. That night by the fire, Josiah poured 2 cups of coffee, handed her one, and for the first time since bringing her here he smiled, a small, rare thing that softened the lines of his face. She reached across the space between their chairs and took his rough hand in hers. No words were needed. The blanket lay forgotten on the shelf, a relic of the day mercy began. Years later, travelers passing the ranch would see a sturdy cabin with flowers planted along the porch, a woman with long dark hair braiding a child's hair, while a tall man in a black hat repaired fence nearby. And they would hear faint laughter carried on the evening wind, proof that even in the wildest land, kindness once given can grow into something strong enough to outlast any storm. If this story of redemption on the frontier touched your heart, hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss the next tale of courage, loss, and unexpected grace in the Old West. And drop a comment below telling me from which part of the country or the world you're watching this video tonight.